Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our spring event series, Campus Connections. I'm Jay Davenport, Vice President of Development and Alumni Relations at VCU. As loyal members of our Founders Society, Heritage Society, MCV Society, our President's Club, our Black and Gold Society, our VCU Alumni Lifetime Member Society, and our loyal ICA supporters, you are an important part of the VCU community, and we're so excited to include you in this exclusive opportunity to go behind the scenes and see one of our premier institutions, the Institute for Contemporary Art at VCU at the Markell Center. Now, before we start tonight, I have a few housekeeping items for us all. Tonight's event is being recorded, and we're asking you to let us know if you'd like to have a link of this event afterwards. We're also inviting your comments and questions, so please locate the question and answer chat box on the bottom of your screen. If you think of a question at any point, just type it in there, and we will answer it as many of these questions as possible during our discussion portion later in the program. Now, captions are also available if you need those by clicking on the three dots or the More button at the bottom of your Zoom panel. And if you do that, a live transcript option will appear. If you do that now, you'll have live captions during the entire event this evening. Now, as many of you know, the ICA officially opened its doors on April 21st of 2018 as a non-collecting institution with an ever-changing slate of exhibitions, performances, film, and special programming that translate our world into every medium. It aims to present the art of our time and provide an open forum for dialogue across collaborations across the region and throughout the world. Since the ICA's opening, it's estimated that more than 150,000 visitors have come to explore the multidimensional space, view its thought-provoking exhibitions, and attend special programs. In February of 2020, USA Today named the ICA a top 10 best new museum in the United States. This would not have been possible without the care and support of our dedicated donors, leaders, benefactors, and volunteers. I'd like to thank the ICA Campaign Committee, who helped raise $37 million to build this incredible LEED certified 41,000 square foot facility. I also want to thank the ICA Advisory Board that advances the ICA mission through strategic vision and leadership, as well as the VCU Foundation for its guidance and support of the entire project. I'm pleased that several members of these groups have joined us tonight. We will begin by hearing some of those who have worked so closely with the ICA. They're going to share their experiences and their inspiration while also describing the impact of the ICA on the university, the community, and the greater region. Please enjoy the short video.
You know, Bill and I both really loved art. It was really our desire to have something that would support this university community in a major way.
Creation of an Institute of Contemporary Art at VCU, as opposed to a museum, was a very new concept to me when I first heard about it. But I quickly learned the value, the opportunities, and the importance that this institute could bring.
This was a place that had been in the cultural imagination and had been wanted for, by some accounts, about 30 years. I've been with the ICA since when it was literally a hole in the ground and we were doing tours with donors to try to get them to imagine the space that would come.
You can almost see us walking around upstairs on our first hard hat tour, and everything was open and we were looking out at the city, and we were, you know, really proud of the fact that we had been part of what it took to envision this emblem of the artistic community.
That magnificent building at that intersection really did make a major step towards the redevelopment and the changing of the nature of that neighborhood. It's now the grand entrance to the city of Richmond. It's a grand entrance to VCU. Opening day helped me understand and explain the value of the ICA and what it can bring to Richmond. The sign on the wall in the upper level, to me, sort of said it all. This was a facility that was open to everybody. It was all about inclusivity. It was about bringing people together to share ideas.
And I also think about how joyful both Bill and I were at the opening. You know, I have a picture of us standing out front, and it was like a party was going on in a big, big way. There were all kinds of people celebrating.
I think for the VCU community, the ICA is a kind of a gateway to what's happening in contemporary art around the world. And I think for the community here in Richmond, ICA is a chance to connect ideas that concern us here in Richmond with conversations that are happening in other places.
Many of the shows that we do are include artists for first museum shows, first museum solo shows. And we also think about artists that are really thinking through the terms of production, how it relates to history, how it relates to contemporary culture, and visions of the future.
There are a lot of institutes of contemporary art, but this one's for contemporary art, which to me sounds much more deliberate and purposeful. It sounds like we're making things happen.
The ICA is really more and more playing a part in a national, international conversation about art and culture. And that's partly due to the fact that we're bringing artists here to Richmond, sometimes for the first time to show in the United States, sometimes to have their first museum show. We're also opening our new community media center in partnership with VPM. And that's going to be a place here in the ICA, in the Murray de Pillars Learning Lab, where anybody can come and get the skills and the training to develop storytelling capacities in media.
The Community Media Center was born from the idea that we wanted to help people in our community, particularly students from VCU, harness the power of media to share their experiences, because I think we all agree that our society and cultural fabric are enriched when more voices are heard.
When I think about the future, I think about all the ways that we can take what we've learned, particularly during the pandemic, to bring art to people where they are, to make sure that art sustains people.
It's been incredible what donor support and philanthropy has made possible at the ICA.
The sense and purpose that it brings to the community, to open ideas to everybody and to open conversations for everybody. Mark Hill Corporation is certainly proud to be part of it.
Being one of those founding supporters of the ICA was important to us, in part to model the kind of behavior that we hoped we would get from others in the community. I can't help but always be motivated by what Bill said, and that was, if you can give a young person an opportunity to look at art, they will forever see the world differently. They'll forever identify opportunity.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. A core value of the ICA's mission is to present exhibitions that promote opportunities for public dialogue around the art and the ideas the artists produce so that their work becomes a part of the national and international conversation. Many of the ICA's exhibitions and artists have been featured by national media, including the New York Times, Forbes magazine, and PBS. We're excited to bring you a virtual walkthrough of the ICA's latest exhibition, Harold Mendez, which opened last month. Enjoy this video introduction.
Let me say a few words about a few of the works in this current exhibition, our new exhibition, of the work of California artist Harold Mendez. The exhibition is titled, Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way. This work here next to me is an example of a technique that it's what he calls a transfer technique. He paints an aluminum surface white layers of photograph over the surface, face down, and then using power washers and ultimately small brushes, removes the paper of the photograph from behind until you just have the thinnest layer of the paper remaining, and you see the image from the reverse. And then he works into that image with graphite, ink, and other materials. So you have this very subtle sort of layered surface. This image is originally drawn from the archive of well-known photojournalist in Colombia called Meleton Rodriguez. So this work over here, very different, is comprised of eucalyptus bark. This was a material that Harold collected while on an artist residency in California. And the bark has been treated in different ways to bring out different tones. He's added inks and natural dyes and different kinds of pigments. And then it's installed by us in the ICA on a wall that we've created for this purpose. And this is the first time that the work has been shown this way. When it's shipped to us, it's this amount of bark. And we work with the artists to figure out what is the best way to present it. And the way we've done it here, you have this object that is like a monument that kind of towers over you and also has this sense of almost like walking into a forest, walking into a thicket with the kind of veiling of the material over this white wall. So this work is a monument of a different kind. And this is a work of art that we commissioned for this exhibition. And what it consists of is a slab of glass. And the glass was treated by Harold right outside here in the street, the ICA, with a blowtorch. So the first act of making this work is to cover the glass with soot. And then our team at the ICA brings this enormously heavy piece of glass into the gallery. And then over 2.5 days, the week of the opening of the exhibition, in this spot in the gallery, the artist works this image into the soot. The image is drawn from a photograph. The photograph is also a monument. It's a monument covered with a shroud. So you have this enigmatic figure that's sort of appearing out of the darkness. With the light that we see shining through the skylights here in the Beverly Reynolds Gallery, there's a projection of shadows through the work onto the wall behind. So you have something like a second image of the work on the wall.
At this time, I'd like to formally introduce our special guest for the evening, Dominc Willsdon, who is our Executive Director of the ICA. Dominc came to the ICA in the fall of 2018 with 18 years of experience as a curator and educator in leadership positions around contemporary art institutions throughout the world. Most recently at San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, where he served as the Leanne and George Roberts Curator of Education and Public Practice since 2006. Dominc has written extensively on visual, cultural, political, and education areas, and has served as an editor of publications on art, institutions, and public life. He holds a master's degree and Ph.D. in philosophy from the University of Essex in England, and a master's degree with an honors in fine arts from Edinburgh University in Scotland. Dominc, welcome so much.
Hi, Jay. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Good evening.
So Dominc, I'd like to start off by asking, since your arrival in 2018, how has the ICA changed?
Well, I mean, the first thing I want to say is it was just a tremendous honor and opportunity to have the chance to inherit a new institute that had been set up in such an amazing way. And just so much credit to everybody who was involved in the founding of the ICA, you know, the supporters, the staff, VCU leadership. It was it's a rare thing to bring a new institute of culture into the world, and I'm just thrilled to have the chance to kind of inherit all of that. So, you know, when you ask what's changed, what's evolved, in many ways we've built on that strong start. So a lot of emphasis on commissioning new work. We talked about that in the video a little bit that we saw a minute ago. You know, giving artists opportunities to make new work or to have a show, perhaps for the first time in the US, as I was saying in the video there, and Amber too. So we built on that. Opportunities for students too. You know, we have so many students who work and learn at the ICA, and I think it's a great way to introduce them to what it means to kind of work in the culture. In terms of changes, I think probably, I mean, a big thing we heard about there was the founding of the Community Media Center, and you know that space was postponed for the pandemic, but we will open that upstairs into Pillars Learning Lab in September. So that was big. Another change, I guess, it's sort of an evolution, would be, I think the program's becoming more international. So, you know, we're really bringing artists from many different continents to the US, and that's something that you know, not a lot of institutions of our kind do around the country. So that's been a big step for us to try and be, you know, aggressively international in that way.
Now, to say the last year has been challenging would be a huge understatement. How has the ICA and what challenges have been presented to the ICA this past year, and how have you and your team responded to those challenges?
Well, I think I'd say probably two things. The first, I think, has been true of lots of us at VCU, which was the first priority was to take care of our communities, to take care of our artists, staff, our partners particularly in those first months. To make sure that everyone was safe and secure and had a sense of continuity. Beyond that, we really took the opportunity to commit to two new directions in programming. One was to show work on the outside of the Markel Center. The exhibition that we had already been working on, Commonwealth, to open in September of 2020, was already in the shoot, and in very short time frame, we made a lot of changes and exhibited a lot of that work outside the ICA. This was a time when there were more restrictions even on internal attendance than there are now. So that was key learning. I think we're going to continue with that. I think it's great to be able to have art in the immediate vicinity of the building. And then the other programmatic direction, of course, is more and more things online. And we launched a couple of pretty cool initiatives. Our artist-driven dial-in service, 1844 not Zoom, for everyone who wants to hear from artists but has had enough screen time for the week. And we're also launching something called public annotations, where artists and curators kind of collaborate with the public in real time to write and edit text together online. That's something that we're putting out there. And a great new artist talk series, collaboration with colleagues at VCU Arts, called Wavelength. And that was online and actually enabled us to bring artists from all over the world that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to bring in person. So that was cool. We're going to continue with all of these things in different ways, even as the pandemic wanes.
Now, getting to know you over the last few years has been a real joy, and understanding where you want to take the ICA has been really, really exciting to watch. Why don't you share with individuals who are watching this evening, what is your biggest priority for the ICA?
Well, biggest priority, I would say reputation building, but that's already something that's multifaceted. But it's true, we're still new, 3 years this month. And, these first years have got to be, all about establishing a distinctive identity for this new institute and telling people about that, and, building the awareness, building the relationships, cultivating a community around the ICA, participating at the kind of highest level in conversations in contemporary culture, in the sort of circuits of contemporary culture around the country and around the world. So there are lots of different aspects to it, but reputation building is key. And I think that, and I know this was the intent going back to the founding of the ICA, I think that the ICA can be such a key part of reputation building for the university and for the city of Richmond. You know, university is a big commitment to creativity. The city more and more known as a city of culture, city of creativity. But to really take that to the next level, we've got to really participate with other places and be in conversation with what's going on in other places. And ICA is here for that.
Now, what's different about leading the ICA compared to the roles that you've previously held at other institutions, maybe specifically at SF MoMA?
Well, the SF MoMA and Tate Modern were kind of similar, being very large scale, museums of modern art, the main museums of modern art in those respective cities. I think that, well, I'll tell you what, I was, as you said before, I was in charge of education. And in an institution like SF MoMA, education is one important function among many. Here, education is the beginning and end of everything that we do. It's because it's our commitment, but also because we're embedded in a, amazing, public, very important to us, public university with the commitment to inclusion and everything that means. So I think that the centrality of education is probably the kind of big difference between working here and working in those other museums.
So far, what have you enjoyed most about your role as executive director?
Well, I do enjoy doing the tours of the exhibitions. I thought I looked a bit tired in that video, but I do actually really value the opportunity just to walk through exhibitions with groups, often groups of supporters. A lot of people on this call, on this Zoom, I know we've done this together, and so that's a big part of it. And because there's no real substitute for that kind of personal connection and that chance to kind of meet and discuss what's happening in contemporary art in person. And we've all lived this kind of virtual life a little bit for a year plus now. And institutions like this, we're good at virtual programming, but ultimately it's about being here, being in this amazing space with these amazing works. And so I've really enjoyed being here with people, and happily that's happening a bit more and more now. And I do, really, anybody, if you want to get in touch and come and talk about the work with me, I'm ICA director at vcu.edu, really happy to come and talk about the work, because that's really, I think, the core pleasure of working here.
Now, Dominic, I know a lot of people have had time to spend time with you in meetings and get to know you, but tell us something about yourself that might surprise people.
Tomorrow, I'm doing an interview for public radio in Lithuania. That was that happened this afternoon. We got that request, so surprise to me. So yeah, at least in context of the job, that's probably this week's surprising thing. Yeah.
So if we see a boom in Lithuanian visitors, we know it's all to you.
Yeah. I actually have a surprising number of friends and family by marriage in Lithuania, so maybe there's something going on over there that I should know about.
I love it. And then what should we expect from the ICA over the next 2 or 3 years?
Well, I should say, we're doing to conclude our anniversary month, we're doing a virtual program this Friday at noon, which is in fact going to be a preview of what's coming up, particularly in the next year. So we'll be going through the exhibitions, and we'll have some of the key people who are involved in that. But I can tell you that the next big opening for us is July 23rd. Artist called Ibrahim Ahmed, who's from Cairo in Egypt. And that's the first of a number of exhibitions in quick succession, which are from many different countries, including the US. And I think are all first museum shows for those artists. So that things are going to really speed up in July and then through the rest of 2021. The other big item, I think, in the rest of this year is the opening of the Community Media Center, which will probably be around September 10th. And we'll be organizing events around all of these things. So it'd be good to see people give people a chance to come out. Something that we've got a little bit further out there, Jay, and you and I have been talking about this in recent months, is that we are exploring the possibility of organizing and hosting a kind of global forum for art education. So bringing schools and those involved with art education from around the world to Richmond, working with partners in the city, multiple venues, working with the School of the Arts, of course, to really make the ICA, Richmond, VCU, a kind of a center for the exploration of what art education is now. And it's early days, but I mention this because at this stage, we're super interested in anybody who wants to come and engage in a conversation about what this could be, about how it could matter for the city, for the university, for education. So we're in exploratory phase for that. That would be in sort of fall, winter of 23, 24, but that'll be here in no time. So that's going to be a big flagship thing for us, I think.
I know, and it's truly an exciting opportunity for the ICA in the future. So we're all looking forward to where that project takes us. So if you don't mind, I'd like to open it up to some questions from our audience, if that's okay with you.
Of course, yeah.
If you're watching this live, if you would like to locate the question and answer chat box on the bottom of your screen, you can type in a question. We have moderators who are watching those, and we'll present as many of these as we can to Dominc this evening. The first question is, one of our guests has asked, how can they help the ICA in the weeks and months ahead financially and as ambassadors and spokespeople for the ICA?
Yeah, I think, it comes back to what I said earlier about the priority of community building at this point. We need to really assemble a broad base of support for everything that we're doing. So we're looking to put that support base together, and most immediately we're looking for support for the programming of the Community Media Center. We have a great relationship with VPM, the chance to build that facility, but the programming is something we need support for. That's ultimately, I think, going to be our approach to youth programming. A chance for older high school students to really get a sense of what it is to make media and to embark on a creative career in college and beyond. So we're looking for support for that, and we're also looking for support for commissioning new work. It's come up a number of times already since the top of the hour, but it's core to what we're about, but it takes resources, to really have a program that begins with conversations with artists about what they want to do and what no one's yet made it possible for them to do. And so those two things, I think, media education and commissioning new art, I think, are real priorities for us in terms of trying to get support together. Was there another part to the question? Did I miss a bit?
No, I think that completes that piece. The next question is about how is the ICA incorporating the artistic DNA of the Anderson Gallery? And if so, how is the ICA doing that?
Well, we've actually done, over certainly my time here, done a number of specific collaborations with the Anderson Gallery in its current form. But I think that and I'm delighted the Anderson Gallery is doing what it's doing. I think that the student role at the ICA is something that we're really committed to. I mentioned about the number of students that work here and learn here in so many different capacities, and quite high-level capacities in curatorial and communications, design, etc. Getting their first professional experience in a way. And we're actually making a big commitment to that by developing a program around student opportunities to sort of actually formalize the the kind of learn, work experience the students can get at the ICA. So that's going to be key to us. We would have rolled that out this year, but we're going to roll it out, for the next school year instead. So, and that's going to be tied into the university's REAL initiative for experiential learning. So we really want to be providing a learning environment for students, and I hope that's in the spirit of what was achieved by the Anderson Gallery and other parts of the School of the Arts over the years.
Very good. Now, the next one's a little bit inside baseball, but I think this is a great question. How are you involved in selecting exhibits, interviewing artists, planning future shows, and et cetera? Or is that what the curators do?
Yeah, so we are pretty collaborative in the way that we work. And I curated this show, which it's a partner exhibition with the ICA in Los Angeles, but I curated this show. I curated the one upstairs on the second floor that just closed yesterday. So quite involved in the program in a sort of artistic director role. But I think that you asked me what I most enjoy about being here. I think the other thing that I could mention is I'm really interested in providing opportunity for talented young people to do what they can do best for the ICA. So I'm here to kind of try and cultivate and provide time and space for the talents of the curators that we have here. So it's a pretty flat collaborative setup that we have, and I'm pretty involved with that on a weekly basis.
The next question is, how would you describe the VCU student body's engagement with the ICA?
Yeah, well, one thing that's really noticeable is that pre-COVID, we had so many student visitors. Our attendance up, through 2019 and beyond was 50% VCU and 50% other, which is much higher than a lot of sort of, so to speak, university museums. And I think it's partly to do with the sort of contemporary agenda of the ICA, partly to do with our location, VCU being not a kind of closed campus so much. But that was really interesting to see, and our visitorship is half of our visitors are under 25 years old, either students or non-students, which is really remarkable. I say that to other museum directors; they think it's like I've made a mistake or something. That's because it's so out of sync with normal museum visitation. But our typical visitor is a sort of 20-year-old VCU undergrad, basically, or their equivalent living in Richmond. So absolutely essential core to our audience. And as I said before, we're looking to provide opportunities for them to find creative outlets at the ICA as we go along.
Very good. So our next question actually kind of builds right into that. So do local schools tour the ICA? For example, nearby Richmond City public schools or private schools from Churchill?
Yeah, I think this was, I guess this is another difference in a way from where I worked previously at SF MoMA and here, because, at SF MoMA, we have tens of thousands of school students, coming each year. And here, there are, so many other bigger museums in the city that are essential for school trips. So we're thinking more in terms of targeted relationships with high schools and maybe high school juniors in particular, to be part of a after school program, summer programs, that kind of thing, rather than school groups. School groups come, and that's really, driven by particular needs and interests of teachers and programs in different schools.
So the next question is about when travel resumes in its previous forms. It says, will you be joining the next VCU road tour led by Dr. Rao once travel resumes? I found your remarks a good preview of upcoming efforts and initiatives.
I haven't yet been invited on that. If you know how I could get on that, if you could have a word for me.
I do know how that could happen, and I think we should definitely get you on the road show.
All right. Yeah. Well, it's just in general, I'm looking forward to getting out and about more. For a curator, for a contemporary art museum director, in many ways, research is travel. Because you've got to go and see things and see artists and talk to artists. So we've. That's been a big limitation on what we've been able to do in the last year, but looking forward to getting out there again and also representing the university, of course, because the university needs to get out there more and represent itself. So, yeah. Absolutely.
The next question is, what is the ICA's plan for membership and how can people join?
Well, this is a very timely question because we made a big change just this month, and I wrote a piece about it on ArtNet, came out on Wednesday, because it is a break with how membership in museums has been conceived for a century or more, which is that we are making membership free. So, the traditional memberships, you have tiers of different, access, different price points, and different benefits at different tiers. I mean, our core need really is to open ourselves to those who may not even see themselves as traditional museum members. And we absolutely need members to support us, to donate. Absolutely need that. But we're trying out an innovative model where we don't begin with with membership fees, membership dues, but we rather seek to include everybody at no cost. So as I said, I did write about that. The piece came out on Wednesday, and that's something we're quite proud of, and something that seems really fitting for the new kind of cultural institute that we're trying to be.
The next question is the ICA currently open? And if not, when might it be open?
Yeah, ICA is currently open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is half the week. We are usually open, pre-pandemic 6 days a week, and we, fingers crossed, all being well, we will return to 6 days a week, in the course of this summer, in advance of the beginning of the new school year, new cultural season. So looking forward to that. But currently, we're with the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10 till 6.
10 till 6, perfect. And then the next question is, can you talk about some of your long-term goals and visions for the ICA?
Well, it's a question's really a chance to kind of pick up on some things I started to say earlier about the centrality of art education. Most peer institutions are not focused in that way on education, and I really, it's my background. It's why I'm in this business. And whether it's this, the global forum we're trying to create, or whether it's deepening our commitment to VCU students and what they can learn, what they can do in the context of the ICA, the more and more education, we talk about it as study sometimes at the ICA in like a really broad sense, like what is it to collectively study? So I'm trying to hold tight to that core idea and then build everything that we do around that.
The next question is, what can supporters do to help the ICA achieve its goals? What are your priorities for donors in the next few years?
Yeah, I think it's youth programming and programming around making media. It's commissioning new work. I think it's the chance to bring artists, once this is possible again, it's a chance to bring artists from around the country, around the world here. So yeah, support for new work and for education in media would be I think the two main things. As well as I think a third thing would be what we've been able to do in terms of creating audio video content. We've had, during the pandemic, we've been able to produce videos that have 1,000 views, around 1,000 views, high hundreds or 1,000 views online. The live podcast we did last Wednesday was around 1,200 views. The theater piece we commissioned from the Conciliation Project in November was around 700-800 views. So support for producing new artistic audio video content online, that'll be the third thing, I think.
Very good. Well, Dominc, thank you so much for your insights this evening and your comments to these questions. I'd like to thank Dominc for dedicating his time to us tonight. And I'd also like to thank everyone, all of you, for your continued support of VCU and specifically the ICA. Your care, your engagement, and make a huge difference in our university and our community. And we are so very, very grateful. The ICA now is open, as you heard, Friday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And with the new guidelines in place, we encourage you to support the ICA and visit early and often. We encourage all of you to do what you feel is safe and come back when you feel that it's most appropriate for you. Dominc, thanks so much for spending your time with us this evening, and I hope to see you again real soon.